Hello everyone, today is 22nd of May, now it's 10 o'clock in the morning Moscow time. I'm Levan Gudadze and this is my first update for a day in which I'll share all the main news that are making headlines in Russian media outlets and Russian language pages on different internet platforms. First part of today's update will be uploaded on YouTube and Rumble as always, and second part on my Patreon page. And if you are not subscribed to my Patreon yet and want to hear more news from Russia and from Russian point of view, please consider to join our Patreon community. Link is under this video in description box and in the pinned comment. And on my Patreon, by the way, I'm publishing not just the news updates but also some non-political content, and I'm trying as much as I can to make page as interesting as possible for a community. And of course you can choose level of your support, level of your monthly support from $5 a month to $10, $20, $50, $100. It's all depends. That being said, let's go through some news now, and I will start with short summary of the situation on Ukrainian battlefield, a really short one because plenty of news that I want to share with you for this moment. And first of all, of course, northern part of Kharkov region, where main direction of the Russian local scale offensive operations are to create a buffer zone. No reports about Liptsi. Seems like operational pause is holding in this area, but at least for now. But Russian forces continue their advances on the eastern flank of offensive direction. And many sources are confirming information that entire northern part of Volchansk is under full Russian control now. Although some sources still disputing this information and are claiming that small pockets of resistance of Kiev regime forces still exist in the northern part. But anyways, Russian forces already started their offensive in the southern part of Volchansk, and most likely before end of this week. In my understanding, Russian forces will not just establish foothold on the southern part of Volchansk, but probably will establish full control over this area also. And simultaneously, Russian forces started new wave of local scale offensive operations to create this buffer zone on the eastern side of Volchansk. And I guess the main task of Russian units in this area is to establish control over there. All the settlements from Tikha and Volchanskaya towards Malaya Volcha, this area. And I guess in upcoming days we will receive more and more information about Russian progress in this area. Of course, this additional Russian offensive makes the situation for Kiev regime even more dire in this area, because they will have to deploy even more reserves or remove troops from other sectors of the front line and send them towards Kharkov region. And simultaneously, I mean, can you imagine a level of difficulties that Kiev regime will find itself if Russian forces will start in upcoming days, maybe in a week or 2 weeks time, similar offensive operation in Sumy and Chernigov regions? That may definitely fast track final collapse of Kiev regime forces. Overall initiative is in, of course, Russian hands in Kharkov direction, and every other sector of the front line also. And by the way, of course, you know that Belogorovka in Seversk direction is under Russian control. I reported about it yesterday. Something is clearly wrong with this map, man. Something is clearly wrong. So yes, this is Belogorovka on Seversk direction, which is under full Russian control. But for whatever reason, this map, which is not pro-Ukrainian map, as far as I know, but this map did not updated this information yet. But let me show you this video, by the way. This is vicinity of Belogorovka on Seversk direction, and just look at this epic footage. It's like from some sort of post-apocalyptic movie, by the way. This is strikes by Russian MLRS systems and heavy flamethrower systems, artillery, maybe airstrikes were simultaneously conducted. Just look at this, man. It's quite something, isn't it? And By this strike, of course, Russian forces were minimizing opportunities of the Kiev regime to dig in to the areas not far away from Belagorovka, to conduct then local scale offensives towards the settlement, to reclaim it. And well, after this type of strikes, I really doubt that Kiev regime forces were able to hold on to anything at all in that in vicinity of Belagorovka. Also, of course, another hotspot is Chisov Yar. And some sources are reporting that Russian forces established full control over the canal district of the Chisov Yar, which is separated from this irrigation channel that goes in between main part of the Chisov Yar and this canal district. Some sources are claiming that Russian forces are controlling about 20-30% of this canal district. Some claim 50%. In any case, Russian forces are inside the district and conducting clearing operation. Most likely before end of this week, canal district will become under full Russian control, and Defense Ministry will report about it. And also very important developments on the southern flank of Bakhmut, by the way, where Klishevka and Andreevka are located. According to several sources in Russian segment of internet, Kiev regime units start withdrawing or retreating all along of the line of contact from Krasnaya settlement up to Kurdyumovka, including Klishevka, Andreevka settlements, and are trying now, these Ukrainian units, to create an additional line of defense or new lines of defense on the western side of this water channel or irrigation channel, Donetsk-Donbass channel, or that's, I don't even remember what is the name of this channel, who cares. But her point is that Kiev regime forces are running away, according to some reports, and it's if that's the case, then I guess not just Klishevka is under full Russian control at this point, but also Andreevka settlement, and maybe today or tomorrow Russian Defense Ministry will report that Andreevka did become under full Russian control. I wonder what is the channel's name, by the way. This is the name of the channel, Seversky Donetsk channel. Yes, Seversky Donetsk Donbass channel. That's the name of that irrigation channel. Let's go through some other sectors now. Avdiivka direction, no reports about some crucial developments in this area. Russian forces finally established full control over the Nitailova. I reported about it in previous updates. Well, I guess in this direction, only Yasnobrodovka is left now for Russian units to establish control over. And I guess in upcoming days, we will see some pincer offensive towards Yasnobrodovka by Russian forces. And, one side will attack Ukrainian forces from Nitailova, another groups will attack from Umanskaya, and once Yasnobrodovka will become under full Russian control, then we will most likely see a shift of Russian offensive operations towards the northern side of Umanskaya and the southern side of Nitailova, because to conduct further offensive operations towards westward will be problematic due to terrain. I mean, just look at these water reservoirs here, and also, by the way, these bridgeheads has to be secured, so therefore line has to be strengthened in this direction. And what else? When it comes to South Donetsk sector of the front line, of course, main hotspot is Urozhaynaya Staromayorskaya settlement on Vremevsky salient. I expect before end of this week both these settlements to become under full Russian control. Let's see. Russian forces already established foothold in both these settlements. And when it comes to southern flank of Donetsk sector, Krasnogorovka area in particular, no reports about some crucial changes in this direction. So operational pause is holding there. So yes, this is it for now when it comes to short summary of the situation on Ukrainian battlefield. I remind you, dear friends, that military channels are providing much greater volume of detailed information on the progress of Russian special military operation, on developments on line of contact. And if you want more information about that, of course, military channels will help with that. And I will continue with some other news now. RIA Novosti's report that this morning Russian forces conducted strikes in Kharkiv on military and logistics infrastructure of the Kiev regime. No detailed information what exactly was targeted, but I guess it was possibly energo facilities, points of concentration of Kiev regime forces, and some companies of military industrial complex, some manufacturing plants or warehouses where Kiev regime is hiding its weapons or producing some weapons. TASS news agency's report, and this is no. Before that, I have this information. RIA Novosti is reporting that previous night, Russian armed forces conducted also strikes on energo facilities of Kiev regime in Sumy region, and if you remember, Russian forces were conducting quite intensive strikes on energo facilities of the Kiev regime in Kharkiv region before this Russian offensive operations started to create a buffer zone on the borderline, and now we are seeing strikes on energo infrastructure of Kiev regime in Sumy region also, which may be seen as an indicator that in fairly short time Russian armed forces may start this creation of the buffer zone in Sumy region also, and local scale offensive operations to achieve that. Of course, that will further stretch Kiev regime forces and will definitely fast track final collapse of Ukrainian army, if we can call that Ukrainian army, because it's definitely a proxy force of the NATO. TASS news agency is reporting, and most of their fighters in Kiev regime's forces are forcibly mobilized. TASS news agency is reporting about arrest of former commander of the Russian 58th Army, Ivan Popov, and according to reports that I see, he was arrested in connection to the case of fraud that is investigated by Russian law enforcement agencies, including military police. And this is of course big topic, and many of you probably already noticed that some very serious changes has happening in Russian Defense Ministry. Some very serious, very high, senior, very high-ranking officials have been arrested recently in recent weeks. Now this information about arrest of also high-ranking military official in Russia, former commander of 58th Army, and I guess this process will continue, and seems like Kremlin is determined to tackle corruption and wrongdoing, basically, very seriously. Kremlin is determined to deal with this issue, and law enforcement agencies have a green light to conduct whatever operations they think are necessary. And it's not just the militaries, by the way, it's not just the Russian armed forces, but all around the country, almost every single day, we have informations about charges against officials, including high-ranking officials, of corruption and some wrongdoing. And this is big, and I fully support this process, by the way, because I was always very direct when it comes to corruption. I was saying, and I'm still on the very same position, that corruption is a main enemy of Russia and main danger for security, for strategic security of the Russian Federation and security of the Russian citizens, Russian society. And I definitely applaud this war against corruption and corrupt officials that Kremlin clearly is spearheading, because this type of arrests, by the way, of the high-ranking officials definitely cannot happen if it's not green-lighted by Kremlin. So very good developments, by the way, I will say. And same time, of course, I feel sorry that so many high-ranking officials were involved possibly, because let's wait court hearings and what decisions will be made by courts, but because before not пока не признан виновным, невиновен, how you say it in English, until by court being recognized as a guilty, you are not презумпция невиновности, isn't it? So in any case, it is good to see that some very serious operation is taking place to tackle corruption, which is a big deal, by the way, in every country. Of course, corruption is a big deal in every country, and Russia is no exception. Of course, Russia is not as corrupt as US, for example, which is, I mean, in US, corruption is even legalized. So no country can compare with US in terms of corruption, but corruption is an issue in Russia, and these cases that are, revealed to public quite, on regular basis clearly confirm that. And hopefully, Russian security services, Russian law enforcement agencies will manage to deal with corruption as much as possible. Of course, you're never gonna beat corruption 100%. It's just not possible. Unfortunately, there are some humans that just cannot do without corruption. I mean, humans are not perfect, isn't it? So therefore, there is no way any country in this world will tackle corruption for 100%, but I hope Russia will succeed in this war in corruption as much as possible. Let's continue, by the way, and after his report here that Zelenskyy is yelling at his generals, according to article in Economist. What surprise! Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelenskyy believes his generals are hiding the truth from him, and has taken to shouting at them. The Economist has claimed, citing government source, purported. What the hell is purported? I don't even know this word. Fits of presidential rage were mentioned in a Monday report on their situation in the Kharkov region, where Russian forces have gained significant ground over the last months. According to British News Weekly, Ukrainian troops deployed there are angry at the development and have competing theories about the case of their failures. Some blame the US and its allies for insufficient and untimely aid, not unlike Zelenskyy himself, while others suspect that incompetence or even treachery played a more significant role. There are also conspiracy theories about politicians in Kiev and Washington conspiring to sell their territory down the river ahead of an ugly peace deal. Denis Yaroslavsky, a local commander who made the national headlines for complaining that fortifications that were supposed to prevent Russian advances did not really existed, told The Economist that Zelenskyy is being kept in a warm bath that is being told comforting lies by his aides, and therefore, Zelenskyy is getting mad and shouting at his generals. I don't think he is not being told the truth. He is, by the way, under strong influence of some substances. Everyone knows that even before he was choose to play role of the president of Ukraine, I mean, he was a well-known abuser of the substances. Nothing changed in this matter. He just continued this process of degeneration even faster, and therefore basically he cooked his brains. Just add on this stress that he's undergoing because of this constant acting that he's doing as a president. And of course, his mental state is in tatters, as Ursula will love to say. So yes, I'm not surprised at all that he's losing it. He's losing his mind, and he's shouting on his generals, on his staff, on everybody, and making some crazy statements in public. So anyways, by the way, let's continue. RT is reporting that well, another crazy statement from Zelenskyy, for example, that definitely confirms that he basically cooked his brains with this abuse of their some substances. So US and its allies should shut down Russian missiles, give Ukraine more weapons, and allow Kyiv to strike Russia directly, Vladimir Zelenskyy has told New York Times. Zelenskyy speak to US outlet in Kyiv on the last day of his presidential term, which was 20th of May, which he has sought to extend for the duration of the martial law he declared due to conflict with Russia. He demanded that NATO countries should shut down Russian missiles over the Ukraine, wondering if they are too afraid to provoke Moscow. He meant NATO, I guess, NATO member states. And then, quote, so many questions is, what's the problem? Why can't we shut them down? Is it a defense? Yes. Is it an attack on Russia? No. Are you shutting down Russian planes and killing Russian planes? No. He means if just missiles will be shut down. So what the issue with involving NATO countries in the war? There is no such issue, Zelenskyy told the Times. Shut down what in the sky? What's in the sky? Over Ukraine, he added. And give us the weapons to use against Russian forces on their borders. Zelenskyy pointed that what the US and UK did in mid-April when Iran targeted Israel with a drone and a missile barrage, which was a retaliatory strike, by the way, of course, from Iran, due to Israeli strike on Iran's consulate in Damascus in Syria. Both the US and the EU have pushed back, seeing their two situations were not comparable, saying that two situations not basically. Zelenskyy wants NATO to act in the same way that they were acting in terms of Israeli protection. He's clearly delusional. He's losing it, and I mean, in very same interview, in one hand he's saying that shut down missiles, and then he's saying shut down everything that is in skies. So I mean, just missiles or everything, because if you are saying everything, then that means Russian planes also. And after all, if I mean, he's so stupid that he clearly don't understand that if NATO directly acts against whatever Russian weapon systems, missiles, planes, whatever, that means NATO is directly involved in the conflict. But for Zelenskyy, this is, I mean, seems like very difficult stuff to understand. Like, I don't know, maybe quantum physics. So yes, this topic, by the way, of establishing no-fly zone over the Ukraine is definitely being pushed in the Western world by Western media, also by Kyiv regime, some Western politicians. And there is two possible scenarios, I guess. One is that my take on future of Ukraine. I think Ukraine will be divided between Russia and some NATO member. And NATO, let's say, collective West. Western Ukraine most likely will become under full NATO controlled and the rest of the Ukraine under Russian control. Although, and by the way, during this process, while NATO forces will be deployed into Western Ukraine, it is logical that most likely NATO will try to declare no-fly zone over the western parts of Ukraine. So I guess that's why this narrative is pushed right now to establish no-fly zone. Of course, there is a slight chance that somehow Kyiv and surrounding areas will remain as a quasi-state on the name of Ukraine on political map, and maybe NATO will try to create some no-fly zone over Kyiv region and Kyiv itself also. Although I don't think Moscow will ever agree on that. In any case, clearly society in the West have been prepared for this new level of escalation, possible extreme level of escalation with Russia. And at some point, I have no doubts about it, that at some point NATO will try to establish a no-fly zone, at least over the western parts of Ukraine. Just mark my words, by the way. Vzгляд newspaper is reporting that Dmitry Peskov, press spokesman of the Russian president, was once again asked about legitimacy of Zelenskyy. And he said that, well, president of Russian Federation said everything on this matter. First of all, it's up to state institutions of the Ukraine to determine, is Zelenskyy legit president of Ukraine or not? Is he acting based on constitution of Ukraine or not? And once Ukraine state institutions will deal with this issue, then we will have a better, we will address this issue also. That's basically Moscow's position, as I understand. And when it comes to state institutions in Ukraine, well, I don't think at this point Constitutional Court of Ukraine or any other institution will challenge Zelenskyy and his legitimacy. But I'm quite sure Washington and London will not allow Zelenskyy to further prolong martial law and maintain power in Ukraine by this constant prolongation of the martial law. So 3 months, that's possibly it that Zelenskyy has left, and that's it, one way or another. But he will be most likely removed from the office after that. Although, by the way, you hear Russian attitude towards this topic of Zelenskyy's legitimacy. Russia is looking into their legal framework, legal basement in that matter, but not all countries have similar approach. For example, Foreign Minister of Germany, Annalena Baerbock, stated that Germany sees Zelenskyy as a legit president of Ukraine, without articulating why exactly, based on what. Because Zelenskyy's term was expired on 20th of May and there was no elections in Ukraine. So based on what Zelenskyy is legit president? If there will be some changes in the constitution, well, okay, that may influence something from legal standpoint, but even then, I mean, I don't think laws have I don't think anything can be done right now to legitimize Zelenskyy, because his term already has expired. But of course, Baerbock don't cares about some legal stuff. By the way, Constitution of Ukraine and laws of Ukraine. She don't care, man. She said, I mean, we are using Zelenskyy for now, and as long as Washington and London are happy with him, he's he's legit for us. That's all. That's attitude of Germany, for example, and I guess many other countries in the West. This attitude will be exactly the same. Once Washington will start acting differently, all these client states in Europe, they're gonna change their tune straight away. TASS news agency is reporting that also Peskov, press spokesman of a Russian president, commented on recent statements, quite strange, to say the least, statements of the Zelenskyy, not just about calls to NATO to shut down Russian missiles and to give them right to use US weapons to strike Russian territory, but many other statements. I mean, Zelenskyy is clearly out of touch with reality, and every other day he makes some nonsensical statements. And Peskov said that Zelenskyy is basically in hysteria. Zelenskyy is in hysteria. His statements are hysterical, and according to Peskov, this is to do it to deteriorating situation for Kyiv regime in the line of contact, which is definitely some of it, part of it. But I will add that, by the way, Zelenskyy in my personal opinion, cooked his brains. He just did not look like a adequate person. I mean, just look at his interviews. I mean, he clearly is, finished. I mean, his family members should recommend him, if they care about him, should recommend him to run away from Ukraine before it's not too late and check in some rehab. And maybe doctors will manage to somehow rehabilitate him. But right now he clearly don't looks like a, adequate person. He clearly losing it. And in confirmation, by the way, another information here that, according to Sergei Lavrov, Russian foreign minister, Vladimir Zelenskyy, while discussing this peace conference, so-called peace conference in Switzerland that should take place mid-June, I believe, but while discussing this peace conference with the ambassadors, foreign ambassadors in Kiev, were actually shouting at ambassadors, high-ranking representatives of the foreign countries, and were demanding from them in hysterical tone and in hysterical terms to participate in this conference, which is once again demonstrate that this person is finished. By the way, he was playing this role of president for a number of years, and he is finished. He is just finished. At this point, he may act any crazy level that you can imagine, and it would not be a surprise to me personally, because he's done, man. He needs some help of the specialists. He had to check into rehab or something and clean himself. TASS news agencies report that because even as an actor, he is losing it. I mean, he cannot act no more this role of president. Anyways, let's continue. TASS news agency is reporting that, according to article in Politico, according to Politico's information, U.S. media outlet, number of congressmen in U.S. are demanding now, basically from U.S. leadership, from Pentagon, permission to be given to Ukraine to use U.S. weapon systems to strike, long-range weapon systems to strike deep inside Russian territory. And by the way, I can understand that this topic of that is discussed in the West quite actively, especially last several weeks, of strikes deep inside Russian territory, may be confusing for many, because according to Russian constitution, Crimea is Russian territory, Kherson region, Zaporozhye region, Lugansk People's Republic, and Donetsk People's Republic. These are all Russian territories, and of course, Kiev regime is using NATO weapon systems to strike these areas. But when Western media is pushing this narrative, when Western politicians are talking about striking deep inside Russian territories, they are talking about Russian territories prior to 2022, before beginning of the special military operation, or maybe even before 2014, when Crimea became part of Russia, because Crimea was also targeted by Western systems. So that's what they mean. So Russian territory before 2014. And now, of course, many former and current high-ranking officials in the West are pushing this narrative that Kiev regime should be given permission to use these NATO weapons to strike on Russian territory before 2014. And of course, this is a big deal. This is a big deal. Maybe there is some behind the door, not negotiations or behind the door agreement between the Moscow and the major Western capitals, that Western weapon systems would not be used on against their territory that West is recognizing as a part as a Russia proper. And now if Kiev regime will start using those weapons on these areas, of course Russia in that case will have to react. And I don't know, man, what is going to happen. So much talk about this topic that most likely Kiev regime, formerly Kiev regime, in reality NATO troops, will start using these long-range weapons to strike in Russian territories, including Belgorod region, Kursk region, including territories that are not disputed by the West as a part of Russia, and Moscow's answer, and Moscow will of course answer on that, and partially we already know what might be Moscow's answer. For example, this information that yesterday in southern military district exercises began on use of non-strategic nuclear weapons. And I guess this is according to orders from the Russian president, commander-in-chief. And yesterday I shared on my Telegram, by the way, video. This is it, by the way. This is the video of those exercises. This is, of course, Iskander missile system. This is Iskander missile system that can carry nuclear warhead, of course. So, and of course, aviation is also involved, by the way. Aviation is also involved in these exercises, and yes, this is a warning. This is a warning from Russia about possible reaction in case of strikes in Russian territory before 2014. So things may escalate very quickly in upcoming weeks. If of course UK's French and US militaries will start launching those missiles towards Russian regions that are not disputed as a part of Russia by the West. And this is answer, by the way, as far as I understand, this is answer from Russian side that, you know what, and if you escalate further, then we might be giving you warning that we may retaliate in every way we find it necessary, possibly even with tactical nukes. And I remind you, dear friends, that just recently ambassador of UK and France were summoned by Russian Foreign Ministry, and they were given warnings that if Western weapons are used to strike deep inside Russian territory, and once again Russian territory that before 2014, I guess that's what all parties are mean when they are talking about these strikes on Russian territory with the Western weapons, because Crimea is targeted by Western weapons so many times, and LPR and DPR and Kherson and Zaporozhye regions. So most likely we are talking about Russian borders before 2014. So these ambassadors were giving some dire warning that Moscow will retaliate in events of strikes, not just against British, for example, assets, not just in Ukraine, but outside of Ukraine also. And I know Western ruling class is incapable of listening to warnings from Russia. They may not even taking these warnings seriously, but they should. They should, because as I said many times before, by the way, at some point Moscow may find itself in a situation when there will be no any other option out of that situation but to use some extreme force. And I'm afraid we are closing into that point by the constant push of this narrative by Western ruling class, by Kiev regime, by Western media, former and current high-ranking officials in the West that that Kiev regime should use those long-range weapon systems to strike deep inside Russia. Anyways, let's continue. RT is reporting that well, Western policy on Russia-Ukraine has completely failed, according to Foreign Minister of Hungary, Peter Szijjártó, and he is absolutely correct. What a legend this person has become, by the way. What a legend on a European political stage. This person and Prime Minister of Hungary have become top politicians, undoubtedly, by the way. Top politicians that I mean, you are listening to, because I mean, look at their statements. They always make sense. Statements of Orban and Szijjártó always make sense. At least the statements that I see from them. And Pentagon, by the way, Pentagon is blaming Russia. That on 16th of May, Russia launched 16th of May, Russia launched military satellite into space that is capable of destroying other satellites. So Pentagon now blaming Russia to fast-track military their own programs to, you know, in terms of that are oriented on deploying some military grade satellites into space. That's what they do. That's I mean, everyone knows this game already, by the way, and I don't think they're gonna fool anyone on this planet. Russia definitely launched rocket on 16th of May. A Soyuz 2-1B rocket was launched, and satellite was deployed into low Earth orbit. Satellite that is working in interests of the Russian Defense Ministry, and of course no details about this satellite. No details about this satellite, but whatever Russia put in the space, this is an answer to hostile actions of the Pentagon, of the Washington. That's what it is. When it comes, because by the way, and this satellite, by the way, is I'm quite sure not built to destroy other satellites. Otherwise, Russia will not propose in UN this resolution to ban militarization of the space if Russia already had some military satellites. Because if UN will agree on that, if all countries will agree and US will not block this initiative, then Russia will be forced to bring down that satellite, military grade satellite. But because it's a surveillance satellite, most likely, that's my understanding, not satellite that is destroying others, but just surveillance or communication satellites. That's why Russia come up with that initiative to ban militarization of the space and the deployment of military grade satellites that are capable of destroying other satellites. And US blocked it. Why? If it's not US that already has that type of satellites in the space, and if US don't have plans to further increase number of these interceptor satellites, let's say, into the space. So nowadays, by the way, anything comes out from vast majority of the Western capitals cannot be taken as on face value. They are lying, by the way, constantly about everything. RT is reporting that, well, Netanyahu says that more people starving to death in the USA than in Gaza. Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, has argued that there were only a few dozen officially confirmed deaths from the starvation among Palestinian civilians in Gaza over the course of the ongoing Israeli war with Hamas, dismissing the International Criminal Court's accusations as blatant lies. Well, what you gonna say, man? Entire world is agreed that Netanyahu's government is using starvation as a weapon. They weaponize starvation, and I don't know how many people died from starvation. But when people are constantly starving, that's a torture. When people are constantly starving, that's a torture, and that's methods that Netanyahu's government is using against Palestinians, and it's a war crime and crime against humanity. RT is reporting that Israel seizes equipment of US news agency. Israeli authorities raided the Associated Press live position in the south of their country on Tuesday, claiming that the agency was violating the new media law by allowing the live broadcast to be retransmitted by its client Al Jazeera. Well, once again, at this point, by the way, Netanyahu's government does whatever they want, and seems like world community is unable to do anything about it. Unfortunately, world is so divided and so ineffective, modern world, that it can do nothing to stop these intentional crimes against humanity that Israeli government is committing, Netanyahu and his criminal associates. First of all, against civilians, of course, of the Palestine, and also they're committing so many crimes that at this point, it's, you know. So of course they will raid their AP's office. Why not? They can do it. Who will say what? TASS news agency is reporting that Politico, by the way, US media outlet, according to Politico, Spain and Ireland are planning to recognize Palestine as an independent state on May 22, today. So this is big deal. Let's see if this information is correct. Now here in Moscow, it's 10 to 11. In Spain and Ireland right now, it's like 3 hours late, 3-4 hours late. So it's still early morning. Let's see if in few hours time we will probably receive information if Spain and Ireland will really recognize Palestine as a state. And also Politico claims that there is a third country also in Europe that may recognize Palestine as a state. Possibly this third country gonna be Belgium, Malta, Norway, or Slovenia. One of those countries will be third. Let's see. Also, by the way, Vzglyad newspaper is reporting that Blinken, head of US State Department, once again threatened China for cooperating with Russia. Okay, I mean, at this point, I don't even know how to comment these statements and the threats from West against everybody, really, that they don't like. Okay, US will sanction China, Chinese companies, China will do the same. I don't think US officials realizing that they are not in a position to intimidate China or to intimidate many other countries in this world, Russia, India, Brazil, South Africa. They're not gonna intimidate BRICS member states, by the way. They are just not in that position. It seems like they are struggling to realize this. They are struggling with objective reality, and they are still acting as if they are emperors of this world, but they are not. They still have some influence, but give it 10, 15, 20 years, and once BRICS will come up with the alternative financial and banking system, alternative currencies, we will see significant deterioration of the the influence of the collective West. And in 10-15 years time, I guess Europe, EU, let's say, will become somewhat irrelevant region of the Eurasian continent, and US will be seen as just one more country on this planet. That's it, really. Era of Western dominance is finished, basically. It's just a formalization of is left. Formalization of this inevitability. Vzglyad newspaper is reporting that according to Russian central bank, Russian economy is overheating, and of course all the necessary measures will be taken to cool down economy a little bit. Some may argue that, well, overheating is good because economy is working on maximum of its capabilities, economy is growing and so on, but it's not necessarily always the case. Overheating is also dangerous for economy, as how you say it, when economy is shrinking, as decline of economy, by the way. So yes, Russian economy is experiencing overheating process, and the central bank is actively monitoring situation, according to deputy of the head of the central bank, Alexei Zabotkin, and well, I guess economical bloc of Russian government will take all necessary measures to cool down economy a little bit. And because economy is overheating, that means that most likely central bank will maintain high interest, which is on 16% right now, I guess, and this is bad, by the way. I don't really like that, but I mean, one of the ways to cool down economy is to, I mean, increase base percentage point by central bank, interest rate. That's another term, isn't it? Anyways, this is it for now. And you know what? I will translate entire this news. I'll give you in detail what exactly Zabotkin said. So, Russian economy currently remains in a state of overheating, said Deputy Chairman of the Bank of Russia, Alexei Zabotkin, at the press conference. He noted that the positive output gap creates persistent inflationary pressure. According to Zabotkin, it will stop when the potential of the economy and its production capabilities catch up with the level of demand that the economy has reached, TASS reports. It was previously reported that there are signs of overheating of the Russian economy, while it is capable of developing even with inflation above the target. So yes, inflation is maybe relatively high, but because of this overheating of the economy, I mean, overall we have economical growth, GDP growth, but yes, still central bank is monitoring situation and will do whatever it takes to calm things down a little bit, cool down economy. Can you imagine that after so many sanctions, by the way, on Russia, Russian economy is not just not shrinking, and there is no, I forget that term, by the way, when GDP is shrinking, how you say it? It's stagnation, yes, can be used, but recession, that's it, man, recession. So despite so many pressure, so much pressure, so many sanctions on Russia, Russia's economy is not just not in the I forget again, man. Okay, fuck it. Can you imagine that? That's what happens, by the way, when you are constantly in news. Your brains need some rest. Otherwise, you are just overheating your brains. That's what's happening to my brains, I guess, because I just said that word and forget again. So despite so much pressure and sanctions, economy not in a recession, but economy is overheated. And that's what central bank is about, and well, they will do whatever it takes to cool down the economy, I guess. So anyways, this is it for now. Sorry, by the way, I may not be in my best form today during this update, but hopefully you will find this first part of the update interesting, informative, and useful. And if so, please consider to support my work with small donations through PayPal, Boosty, or by subscribing on my Patreon page, on which, by the way, before you will finish watching this update, I will upload the second part of it, and you can go straight to my Patreon right now. All the links under this video in the description box and in the pinned comment. And before I go, dear friends, let me also remind you that today evening 9 o'clock I will have a live stream, and I hope you will find time to join the conversation. It's always good fun, by the way. You know, I'm actively engaged with community. It's always interesting. So today 9 o'clock this evening Moscow time on my YouTube channel. This is it for now. Have a great day and take care. And well, I will continue recording second part of the update. Bye for now.